You're tuned into Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is Steve Knowles coming at you through the RBLR Sports podcast. I am here today to cover the Rowdies, as I usually do with my co-host Carlos. We are here not just to talk about the Rowdies today because it is the off season, but Carlos, we got some unexpected but pleasant news this week. We were originally going to talk about pretty much the USL environment and the expansion, especially of the USL Championship and USL League One. But the Rowdies helped us out just a little bit here by giving us some players to talk about. So we actually will get into that first. It's only 3 players. We're not going to go into too much depth today. And then those are the ones that were announced yesterday and today. And after that, we'll talk about the expansion. But yeah, so like I said, very nice of them to help us out, give us something to talk about even during the off season. Before we get into anything, Carlos, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, James. I'm thrilled about these 3 new players. Off the rip, 3 really, really impressive signings. Intention, declaring signings right off the bat. Guys that are, proven at this level. We'll talk about it a bit more individually on these 3 players, but I'm pretty hyped up. It's probably the quickest I've been, excited for the following season after a season ender that I've been in recent memory. I can't really think about the last time the Rowdies kind of ripped off 3 truly important signings like this back to back. So exciting stuff. I'm excited to talk about it with you. I'm excited to talk about it with the folks watching on YouTube or on X or wherever you're watching. Be sure to throw in your questions, comments, what you're feeling about these guys. We can jump into it in a little bit. Of course, some news actually on the USL expansion front that we were going to talk about as well that dropped today too. So news-filled day on this Tuesday evening. James, it's freezing here in Arlington, Virginia. It sucks because it's cold and there's no snow. When it gets this cold, I want it to at least be snowy.
Yeah.
Make it like a novel event. But now it's just cold and freezing rain for no reason. So, James, how's it going down there? Hopefully better weather. Are you excited about these guys? We'll talk about it in a second. How's it going down there?
Yeah, we are not getting freezing rain. In fact, it was in the 80s yesterday. So, in all honesty, I was complaining about the weather, but for a different reason. But things do turn a little bit differently in November for most of the rest of the world. So, I guess that here, this is probably the worst place to complain because most people come here to get away from that. So, I guess that's how it is. In the meantime, though, we can move on to the Rowdies talk because we can talk about the weather, but I'm sure most people are not tuning in for that, Carlos. I'm sure most people are actually tuning in to hear us talk about the Rowdies because whether or not they were aware of the signings, they are here to talk about actual new players for the Tampa Bay Rowdies in 2026. And just like you already noted, they are some pretty big names. If you are familiar with the USL Championship at all, and honestly, if you're tuning in to listen to us live, I'd be shocked if you weren't. So you probably know who these guys are. And the Rowdies are coming out of the gates pretty strong here. So let's get into that. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube, any major podcast platform, all of that good stuff. You guys already know. Follow us on your social media at RBLR Sports. We are wherever you are. So really quickly wanted to talk about, I actually had one other note, but related to the Rowdies before I got into the new players. But this was before they were announced that I wrote this. So it's not as important right now. But the U.S. men's national team played at Raymond James Stadium. Not last Tuesday, the week before, whenever it was, doesn't matter. But they trained, or at least spent a little bit of time at the Waters Complex where the Rowdies obviously trained. So that was pretty cool. Got some social media stuff up between our coaching staff and their coaching staff. Really nice to see that. I think that our Waters facility, I think that the place where the Rowdies play most of their games, which is Al Lang Stadium, of course, these are all really big amenities for players. We talked recently about the labor struggle going on between the Players Association and the actual league. I got into that more yesterday with Kartik Krishnaiyer, who's been on this podcast, but on a different podcast. So that was something that we talked about a little bit, the Rowdies do have a lot going for them in the USL Championship, and I think that these are pretty cool things to note. We are obviously we have hosted Benfica for the Club World Cup, and I believe that we are also a potential host facility for World Cup teams. The problem, of course, being that we would still be in season, presumably during the 2026 World Cup. I'm not really sure how that would play out, but anyway. All of that aside, really cool stuff. Check out the social media if you would like to see the crossover there. Now let's get into the players who are going to be playing at the Waters Complex for most of their training. Again, I think it is a good amenity and probably a good reason why we can bring in these names. Carlos, I will turn it over to you to get us rolling with the new signings.
Yeah, I'll run through the three of them really quickly just to get the names out there. Again, if you're tuning into this live, you've probably heard of these guys, USL vets by this point. Sort of in the middle of their career, physical primes, just really, really exciting players to have on the squad. First one that was announced was just about a week ago, Marco Micaletto, coming over from Colorado Springs last season. He actually scored on us earlier this year in our matchup against us. So, I guess if you can't beat him, bring him over to your squad. Second signing that came out later last week was Russell Cicerone, striker out of Sacramento Republic last season, who had a great year with them, had a great 3 seasons with them. We'll talk about them individually again a bit more in just a second. Side note, he also scored and assisted on us earlier this year. So make of that what you will. And then the latest news that came out today, James, was the signing of center back Leland Archer, who was most recently with Charleston Battery, had a great year with them as well. Of course, Charleston finishing second in the conference. He was a big part of their defensive unit. And I mean that literally, he's 6'4", big part. That kept the Charleston defense solid, intact. Had a great year with them. Really, really excited about him to be on this Rowdy squad. Excited about all 3 of these guys. James, immediate reactions on the news from the last week, generally, broadly. How are you feeling about the 3 guys collectively? Then we'll jump in and talk about them a little bit individually. But 3 signings right out of the gates. How does that make you feel?
Well, I knew that the Rowdies had planned to get things going after the season ended, right? Because we were at least told, we didn't know what the plans were and who was coming, who was saying all that kind of stuff, but we did know that they had to wait until after the season actually ended to make those announcements. So when we got in fact, I'll do this right now while we have it. The 2026 players lined up before these 3 announcements yesterday and today were Robert Castellanos, Aaron Guillen, Lawrence Wyke in defense, Luis Alvarez, Lewis Hilton, Alex Mendez, and Nate Worth in midfield, and Drew Mustali up top. So that's where we were. I did not expect them to necessarily start immediately after Thanksgiving because they took the week off, which is totally understandable. Most people are traveling. Most people aren't going to be paying attention to their social media as much. Maybe you're in the airport. Maybe you're on the road, literally. So there are lots of reasons not to do it during Thanksgiving, and they waited, and they have given us a ton to work with already here. So I'm really excited about that particular aspect. It seems like, obviously, 2025 was a bad campaign for the Rowdies. I said this multiple times, but before the season started, nobody thought that the Rowdies would not make the playoffs. Nobody said that. Absolutely. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, John Morrissey, the guru of the USL tactics account on Twitter and everything else that he covers, I believe, had the Rowdies at 100% chance to make the playoffs. Obviously, it wasn't quite that, but the point is that everybody thought that the Rowdies were in. The fact that we didn't make the playoffs, I really think that the front office, I think that everybody involved looks at this and they are aware of how big of a failure that is, right? So what's the next step? Well, if you want to get people back, you want to get people excited, then you need to start hitting them with some big names. You need to start hitting them pretty much after the offseason obviously is done. Yeah. So that's what they have done here. And I appreciate that particular aspect. There is effort to re-energize people here, and they're not waiting. They're not waiting around. There are enough cases of teams in the USL Championship, USL League One, just waiting around to the last minute. The Rowdies are not going to be doing that. They are a very professional organization. I've already made note of that with all of the facilities that they have. So that's really good. The individual players here, that's a whole different story. And that's what phrase did you use earlier? Swinging for the fences.
Swinging for the. I used a few for swinging for the fences. What else did I say? Intention declaring signings.
Yeah,
I made that one up. I'm sure someone said that before. But no, James, like you said, prepared going into this offseason. I think there's certainly a level of pressure to quickly right things next season after what happened this past year. And we heard Dom Casciato mention the younger signings that they want to look for as well. All three of these guys, we'll talk about them again a little bit more in a second, 31, 29, I think 29 as well. I'll fact check myself. So maybe not the youngest on the squad that we'll see next year, but guys in, the physical prime of their careers, veterans at this level who have played really, really great soccer. And like I said, names that you should recognize if you've kept up with this league at all over the last 2-3 seasons. James, this is really exciting. Like I said, it's probably the most excited I've been about the initial, off-season signings that I've been in quite some time. There's a couple notable exceptions in there, mentioning Joe Cole, of course, or Marcel Schaefer from that crazy year. But this is really, really big. I'm excited about this. I want to jump into a couple of these guys, not a couple of these guys, all three of these guys more in depth here for a minute with you. The first signing that was announced, James, a little over a week ago was Marco Micaletto. This was a big one. It was a great first signing. It was a name that a lot of people are familiar with. He has had a great few seasons between USL League One, MLS Next Pro, and of course USL Championship over the last 2 years. He started making a name for himself in the USL with South Georgia Tormenta at the League One level, excelled there, made the move to Columbus Crew 2, played really, really well over there, and then made his way to the USL Championship, 34 games with New Mexico United in 2024, 1 goal, 6 assists. Last season, 30 games with Colorado Springs, 7 goals, 3 assists. Upped his goal scoring margin last year. Really fun to have a guy in the midfield who can rip a couple shots from outside the box, create some chances by himself, and finish some opportunities. He's a really, really exciting player. He's explosive. He loves to move the ball quickly and get upfield. This is a guy I'm really excited about, and I'm really interested to see how he pairs with the guys we already have on our roster in the midfield, James. Of course, we have Luis Alvarez in there, who is an exciting younger League One, formerly League One prospect who's made the jump to championship, explosive player. Alex Mendez, we've seen how explosive he was last year. It seems like you have a lot of attacking firepower in that central attacking midfield area of the field right now. Super great. Excited to know that there's not one guy I can point to and be like, he's a for sure shoe-in starter. There's going to be a lot of great competition in the midfield. I think Marco Micaletto is probably a guy you're going to see starting a lot of games next year. But he's going to be challenged by these other guys on the roster already. So great first signing to kick things off. I'm thrilled about this guy. I think he'll be a great leader in the midfield who can potentially create a lot of goals, not just in the assist world, but clearly goal scoring. Like I said, 7 goals last year with Colorado Springs. James, what do you make of this guy?
Yeah, I think that it's you've already highlighted all of the numbers, obviously, but Marco Micaletto is a guy who has a little bit of name cachet. Probably of the three of them, I would say the lesser of the name cachet. Yeah. I think that Leland Archer and Russell Cicerone are probably higher up on that list overall. So the way that I kind of think about it is if Marco Micaletto is the guy that is the last of the three that you would think of, that's pretty good. We're making pretty good progress already in this season. So I'm very excited, and it does add to our midfield here. We've already talked about the players that were brought on, but Lewis Hilton is getting up in age. He wasn't able to play as much last season. It'll be interesting to see where he lines up. I would imagine, just based on, let's look at what we have right now. If we are putting literally the players that are on this roster out on the field, you could have a central midfield of Lewis Hilton, Marco Micaletto, and Alex Mendez.
Oh,
That's pretty good, right?
yeah.
Luis
Yeah.
Alvarez probably on the wing at that point. I don't know. We're going to have some more players, and we're obviously going to have some more signings. But geez, that's not too bad if you ask me. I really do like that potential partnership of Micaletto and Hilton. I think that sounds pretty good.
Absolutely. It's really, really exciting stuff. I like I said, I can't really express enough how excited I am about this one. And I think you make a good point saying that maybe Micaletto is the least, I say that, with an asterisk, least recognizable for the casual USL fan out of these 3 signings. But again, that carries a lot of weight. If, like you said, this is kind of the one with the least name cachet or cash. What's the word you used?
Cachet, yeah.
I like that word. Side note, by the way, played college soccer in 2015 with Lewis Hilton at Young Harris College. This is just, it's not related at all explicitly to the Rowdies, but whatever was in the water at Young Harris College in 2015 is insane. They're producing that 2015 Young Harris College. I think it's like a D2 or D3
yeah,
school.
Yeah, I think so.
It's definitely not D1. It's at least D2. Lewis Hilton, Marco Micaletto, another USL guy, Mickey Rowe played on that squad. Paco Craig, of course, the center back who's made a name for himself at this level, was on that 2015 Young Harris squad. Macaulay King is another USL name that's less relevant, but was on like this 2015 Young Harris squad produced 3 USL superstars. I don't know what the hell's going on at Young Harris College. I don't even know where it is, to be honest.
I believe it's in Georgia.
Is it Georgia?
Yeah.
Fascinating. They got something cooking over there. So I guess if you're a USL scout and you're looking for talent, the place to go is Young Harris College, apparently. Long story short, this guy's awesome. Shout out Marco Micaletto. This is going to be a really, really, really great signing. I'm excited. Yeah. And it's December, James. It's December 2nd. It's ridiculous that we're talking about such big names December 2nd.
Yeah.
Speaking of big names,
Carlos, before you move on, I just wanted to throw out a couple of comments that we have. And by the way, anybody listening, if you do have comments, please join us here and let us know. But Ewan Mutuasa, I believe, apparently you guys are getting MD Myers as well. I don't know about that one specifically. We have seen rumors, obviously. We haven't heard anything. We don't know we're not just trying to say this. We don't know who has been signed behind the scenes. We're waiting for the announcements just like everybody else. I did not know about Marco Micaletto or Russell Cicerone or Leland Archer. I assumed that somebody would be announced sometime. So I was eagerly refreshing my social media from the Rowdies to see if that was today or whenever. But if MD Myers is on there, that's awesome. We are not the only people that have seen the rumors, though. So clearly that is at least making the rounds. And then really quickly, Giuseppe LaRocca has written, late to the show, just joined, love the signing so far. Wish we could have held on to Ollie Bassett. We should talk about where Ollie Bassett has gone. And he also commented to say that Young Harris is D3 in Georgia or possibly NAIA. But yes, those were the 3 comments I wanted to throw out there. So really quickly, Ollie Bassett, I believe that he has gone back to the Canadian Premier League. Inter Toronto is what they're called now. There is a team that was York 9, then York United, and now they're Inter Toronto. I don't know how good it is to have 3 name changes in 5-6 years, however long they've been around. So unfortunate that it didn't work out for Ollie Bassett, but obviously we are trying to replace these players pretty quickly. Carlos, anything that you wanted to say with those?
I fact checked myself. Young Harris is Division 2 officially. And then the MD Myers thing, saw that on Twitter as well. There's a USL, it's called at USL Championship Rumors on Twitter. It's really interesting. I don't know who this is or, how much smoke their tweets have, but there's been some spot on rumors recently. So, we'll keep an eye on that. If it comes out that this is true over the next several days, we can talk about it next week more in depth. But James, and MD Myers pickup would be a ridiculous signing to add on to these 3 we're already talking about. Kidding. That would be, I'd start feeling like the LA Dodgers of the championship at this point, signing all these big names. Okay. Fascinating. Thanks for those comments. Again, if you're listening to this live on YouTube or on X, reply on X, comment on YouTube. is always fun to talk with folks in the comments here. James, this is exciting stuff. Again, we still have 2 more people to talk about here, and they're still big names. Thrilled. The next guy that was announced on December 1st. This was yesterday. Wow.
Yes.
Man, it's a blur. Russell Cicerone was announced yesterday by Tampa Bay Rowdies. He is joining us from Sacramento Republic. He's been there for 3 seasons. Prior to that, 2 seasons at Pittsburgh, 2 seasons at St. Louis FC, and 1 season at FC Cincinnati, my girlfriend's favorite squad. She's funny. Like, she started following early on in the USL days. Cicerone wasn't really a household name at that point yet, but she remembers this. She's a real fan. Sometimes I quiz her. I'm like, you know Cicerone? She's like, yeah, 13 games. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. This is a big pickup, James. I like goals. That wasn't necessarily always our problem last year, was goal scoring. But if there's a guy who you can't say hasn't been consistent in his career in the USL, it's Russell Cicerone. The guy scores goals. He had 9 goals in 32 games last year. It wasn't his, stellar season that he had in 2023, but again, consistent mark. 5 goals in 24 games in 2024. I think he was dealing with some injuries. 2023 was the big year for him that put him on the map, I think, as a top striker. He had 19 goals and 5 assists in 40 league games. That's ridiculous. You're talking about almost a goal every other game. Insane numbers. In Pittsburgh, the season 4, 37 matches, 15 goals. Season 4, that 32 and 16. And by the way, racking up assists in the process as well. Like, he's creating chances when he's not scoring them. 5 assists last season, 2 assists season before that, 5, 6, 8 the seasons before that. The guy is a playmaker. He's a goal scorer. He's a finisher. It's really exciting to see him here. He's explosive. He moves pretty quick. But more important than anything, he's always in the right place at the right time, which is what you want out of your striker, right? That's what I always think about when I think about, best strikers the Rowdies have had in the last few years. Think about Gonzatti, Christoph, right? They're not guys that blow you away with their speed or anything, but they're guys that are smart and know where to be when the ball gets to them, right? That's a Cicerone type of player. 31 years old, still pretty quick for his position. I'm excited to see what he can do. He's proven. He's got the credentials and the stats to back it up. This is one that's a safe, strong striker signing, James, and I'm excited for it. Tell me about it. What do you think?
We needed more attacking firepower this past year, didn't we? So, it's unfortunate that Manuel Arteaga was. I think that he actually ended up having a relatively good year, because I think anytime a striker hits double digits, that's pretty good. However, the problem, of course, was that I think that he only started scoring after August this year, pretty much. He had a couple before then, but there were long stretches that he would go without goals. And I remember that you and I were talking about how he had such a dry spell to start the year. So that was unfortunate. And obviously, Wubens Passius was here on loan. He also went through spells. He was streaky with his scoring, but I think that Wubens Passius probably had the better year of the two of them. So if we end up losing both of them, because we're probably not going to get Wubens Passius back, and we already know that Manuel Arteaga has left at this point, then replacing them becomes a big priority. Double-digit goals, even if they are streaky, and even if it only comes after August, whatever the case was, you still need to replace that. So Russell Cicerone has hit double digits multiple years in this league. Let's hope he does it again. And he's not at a point where he would be past his prime. So I'm not worried about it in that sense. And I think that this is another one that's very positive for us. Yeah,
it's big. It's big. He's been, I think the narrative around him sometimes has been the injuries, right, that he's picked up. And you see the drop off sometimes when you look at the stats in 2024, right? But if you can stay healthy, like, dude, this is awesome. This is a great pickup. 31 years old, veteran in the USL level, like, knows what he's doing, knows how to play at this level. This is really, really exciting. So hopefully we can keep him healthy this year. That's actually one of the comments I'm seeing on YouTube as well. If he can stay healthy, he could be a serious problem. Throw some playmakers in around him, James. Throw some guys on the wing that can put in a good ball. And you have a really, really, really interesting striker. By the way, Cicerone and Micaletto both have awesome highlight reels at this point in their career. I think the Rowdies did a good job of compiling some of their highlights for social media. But you can do yourself a favor at any point and hop off YouTube or hop on YouTube, look up Marco Micaletto's goals and Cicerone's goals. These guys have scored some bangers in the last few years in the USL. So really, really excited about this. Really excited for some exciting soccer that Cicerone can bring. This is really awesome. So James, we'll see what we can do with him. I think his his ceiling in terms of goals is going to be affected by obviously who we sign around him as well, right? We'll see who that is over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. We'll see who we put on the wing. We see who's putting in the balls in the midfield as well. But I think we have a really interesting opportunity here to put him back into the double digits in goals.
Yeah.
So one more guy, James, to talk about. Talking about him in a second. This is really, really fun. I'm so excited. We're talking about 3 signings in December. This is awesome. This is the last one that came out today, right? It's today. Everything's blending together. Charleston Battery. I was going to say gave us. It's probably not what happened. Leland Archer is coming to the Rowdies. This is awesome stuff. Played his last season with Charleston Battery. He is 6'4". He's 29 years old, very much in the prime of his career. Trinidadian center back. He's going to be a problem. He had a great year with Charleston last year. They weren't at the top of the league in terms of goals conceded, but they were really good. Obviously, you finished second place. You need a good back line to support that. He was a big part of it. We've talked about last year how shaky the back line could be sometimes.
Yeah.
Despite the really good names we have back there, right? We had Forrest Lasso, we had Castellanos, we had Guillen, guys that we know are really talented. Like, there was plenty of games where it just wasn't clicking. I think Leland Archer is a really, really, really impressive guy in the physical prime of his career, smack in the middle of his career. I think there's a lot to offer and a lot to like from him. Physically, experience-wise, he could be a leader in the midfield. And, of course, you don't really complain about an athletic 6'4" center back on your back line. This is awesome. Right. Veteran at this level. People know who he is for a reason. This is going to be a really strong pickup for our back line. Thoughts?
Yeah. There's not too much to say about this one. So other than what Carlos has talked about, Leland Archer is he's going to be another physically big presence. And so, yeah, I like that. We got one more comment here from Ewan Matuasa. New owners must have opened up the checkbook to lure in Archer. Possibly. I'm gonna go one more time to the old well of our really good facilities here. There are a lot of teams that they might not play on. They might not play on fields as nice as what we have at the Waters Complex. Also, you have to think about if what I know of the players that I've played with, which is at a lower level, is anything to take for players at a much higher level. Turf is not where you want to play generally. It's where you will play if you have to. The Rowdies don't play on turf during the week. They don't play on turf on the weekends unless they're traveling. So I honestly think that this could be a pretty good part of it. Yeah. And money is definitely involved to be sure. But yeah, I think that people know the Tampa Bay Rowdies are a really professional organization. So yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I wish there was more of a way to know how much the checkbook played a factor into this decision. I'm fascinated by these new owners that we frankly don't know a ton about. We haven't really had a chance to talk to them. We didn't really know fully what the scope of the intention was or is with the Rowdies, right? Just that operations were kind of going to continue as normal. So I'm curious how much money is being thrown around with the Rowdies right now. There's no way to know, really. I wish we could, be a fly on the wall and find some numbers.
Yeah, we don't get that.
Yeah, but there's no way to know really right now. Leland Archer, big pickup. I think something to mention here is that I said he's 29 years old. He spent the vast majority of his career with the Charleston Battery and in Charleston generally, right? Played from 2014 to 2017 at the College of Charleston, his collegiate career, 68 games for them, and then spent one season not in Charleston at South Georgia Tormenta, played 14 games there. From 2018 until now, until today, he was a player of the Charleston Battery. That's a long, long time, James. Charleston Battery is losing a legend of their club who's played there for how many seasons is that? 2018, 25, seven seasons, right?
Yeah.
It's clearly a guy who has enjoyed being in Charleston if he's been there since 2014, including the college years. The Rowdies must have, I don't know, who knows, maybe opened up the checkbook. Gave him a good pitch. Maybe it was just time for a change, right? When you've been in the place that long, 11 years in Charleston, maybe it's just time for a change sometimes. And of course, Rowdies have, like you said, great facilities, a great pitch. Casciato said this in the article that was on the Rowdies website last week. He's not really trying to sell the Rowdies. Players should be excited to come here, and maybe Leland Archer just felt it's time to come to Tampa Bay Rowdies and help us get to that trophy that we've been desperately trying to get back to. So excited about this guy. I just felt that was worth mentioning because we didn't mention it at the beginning. Has been at Charleston Battery since 2018. There's a really, really big move in the USL Eastern Conference for a guy who's been there for so long. So exciting stuff. Really thrilled about this. This is a guy that's going to certainly reinforce our back line, and a guy that Charleston Battery, the city of Charleston as a whole, is certainly going to miss.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about Charleston real fast, obviously Leland Archer is left. Transfer market today lists Cal Jennings as a free agent, so that is somebody that I think we can safely say at this point is leaving Charleston. There are the rumors about MD Myers. Again, we don't know about that, but I would be very happy to see him if he does come to play for the Rowdies. And so, yeah, those are three big names, three regular starters. Obviously, is not. I think their biggest player this last year is Juan David Torres, because he was the guy who was supposed to fill the Markanich role. And he didn't obviously break any records or anything, but at the same time, very big. I think that he played a very big role for them. So where he ends up, I don't know. I feel like he could end up in MLS or something. But it's possible that Charleston are looking at a big turnover year. So maybe Tampa Bay Rowdies are going to benefit from that.
Yeah. This has been a really interesting offseason to jump into so quickly, James. We've typically done this in the last 2 years where we have like a couple weeks to settle into the offseason, talk about our roster wish list for the offseason.
Right. Yeah.
We haven't really had a chance to do that. And we're already throwing out these big names, including the MD Myers rumors out there, right? Poaching Charleston of some of their best players right now, which I love to do, by the way, because I don't particularly like the Charleston Battery. That being said, I love their players. They're fine people, and now they're Tampa Bay Rowdies. So we'll see what happens over the course of the rest of the offseason. But what more can I say, right? When I'm like, okay, typically by this point in the season, in the offseason, we still have a moment to be like, okay, these are guys that are out of contract that I would like to see in the Tampa Bay Rowdies jersey.
Right, exactly.
At striker, we already have Russell Cicerone. We could talk about some other guys at some point, maybe next week, but who knows? By the time we get to next week, we maybe have 3 more players, right? So thank you to the Rowdies for these incredible signings. No thank you, anti-thank you, for not giving us a chance to put together our offseason wish list. It was way too quick. A little upset. I love checking.
Yeah, what are we going to ask for Christmas now? I don't even know.
Yeah, I love checking. We can't even, like, once we get to Christmas, we usually have a little episode where we can be like, here are the guys we want under our Christmas tree on the Tampa Bay Rowdies field next year, right? Like, we're going way too quick, but I love it. If you want to keep up with all the USL moves happening that are confirmed, USLtactics.com, John Morrissey's page has a great roster tracker.
Yep.
USL offseason transfer tracker. It's really, really fun to keep up with. There's so much stuff happening all the time. Plenty of players that are out of contract that, to me, off the rip would seem interesting. I've said I wanted Romario Williams in a Rowdies jersey for the last 2 off seasons at this point. I think he's out of contract. He's out of contract according to this Indy. That'd be a fun striker to have on your bench or getting some important minutes alongside Cicerone. But there's a bunch of guys in here that I'm just shouting this out to throw a plug in for USL Tactics, because John is the absolute GOAT of the United Soccer League world. James, really, really exciting stuff. I don't know that there's all that much to say, but we will see what comes of this in a week or so, right? We'll probably record again or do this live again on next Tuesday, and who knows how many players we'll have by then.
Yeah, right.
Maybe one of those officially MD Myers, but who knows? James, anybody else you want to add in here? Anything else you want to add on these three players, offseason in general? Are you as angry as I am that we didn't have a chance to put together our Christmas offseason wish list?
Well, I do like doing that. I guess I'll just have to, we'll just have to like try and fill in little spots on the roster or maybe actually a different idea is we can go a little bit bigger and we can think like past the Rowdies. We can be like, what is my wish list for the USL? What is my wish list for, I was just in a conversation earlier today elsewhere about, the different federations, because everybody wants CONCACAF to merge with CONMEBOL, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. But so maybe that's something that we could talk about. I don't know. It might be a little bit bigger than that.
I don't know. Nobody knew this when they were hopping on this live stream, but this is actually just a brainstorm session between James and I about what we're going to do the rest of the offseason. No, this is great. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. Obviously, I don't really care that we don't have a chance to put together our offseason wish list. There'll still be a chance to, throw some names out there about guys we'd like to see as key depth pieces, as, super subs, I'm sure. We still got some time, so we'll see what we can do. James, let's jump into this. Put a bow on this part. Wrap it up, put it under the Christmas tree. 3 new signings for your Tampa Bay Rowdies. 3 big signings for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And again, I mean that literally when it comes to Leland Archer. I'm thrilled about this. Yeah. Again, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on X or YouTube, feel free to throw in a reply. Hashtag Ask RBLR on X. Throw in a comment on YouTube. Tell us what you're feeling about these guys. Any questions on these guys? I'd love to dive into these guys more later on, and I'm sure we will as we get closer to the season and start to craft, the starting 11, what that might look like. But I think we've covered these guys individually enough for now. Am I right, James?
Yep.
Okay. So let's jump into the other portion to close out this podcast that we were going to originally focus more on before, all these signings came through. Some USL expansion updates, news, just kind of check-ins with the guys and gals joining the USL. Actually, I said gals because Sporting Jackson, Brooklyn have their women's sides, but they're already in the Super League. So not really expansion news on that side. Before I do any of that, shameless plug. James, I'm going to throw this in here. It's December. That means Christmas is around the corner. That means you got to you can get yourself a gift. You can get your loved ones a gift too. And I think the perfect place to start would be shop.rblrsports.com, because liking and subscribing to this podcast is free and it's a great way to support. And I appreciate everyone who does. But if you want to support this podcast just a little bit more and buy yourself and some loved ones some really cool gear in the process, go to shop.rblrsports.com. You can use promo code COYR for 10% off your order, James. Are you kidding me? Is it still, it's like Cyber Tuesday now. Get 10% off.
There's got to be some deal going on here.
Yeah, COYR for 10% off your order. You can get some cool gear. Like I said, all the Tampa Bay sports teams, of course, your Rowdies, but the Bucks, the Lightning, the Rays as well, the Sun. I think some Bulls gear coming as well for your USF Bulls. This is really exciting stuff. Go check it out. Buy yourself some cool gear and some loved ones, some fun RBLR merch ahead of Christmas. James, it was fun talking about all of these signings, and we'll come back to this next week. But let's talk a little bit about USL expansion. There's some news that came out today, actually, which was really timely, so I appreciate that. But let's check in a bit with some of the clubs that we know will be joining the USL Championship and League One in 2026. James, a local one, local-ish, within a 4-hour drive. Great to see you. James, give me the first club on our list here to keep an eye out for 2026.
Yeah, it's as local as it gets, right? When England talks about their longest ever derby between, or their longest ever game between Truro City and Gateshead, I think it was something that was, if I'm not mistaken, it was something that would fit within the state of Florida. So obviously pretty silly there. Now, In 2026, there will be an addition to the USL Championship. This is still confirmed. This is not one of the ones that has been delayed to 2027. There are two that we'll get onto later, but Sporting Jacksonville will be joining the USL Championship next season. They have a women's team already going in the USL Super League. If you haven't been to a Tampa Bay Sun game, by the way, I guess this is a perfect time for a little plug here, but the Tampa Bay Sun play Sporting Jacksonville this Saturday. I will actually be previewing that game later tonight. But I would love for everybody listening to get tickets to that and come out and join us there. It's a really good time. And also, if you join us specifically in the supporter section, not only are the tickets the cheapest there, but you get to help us with the chanting and the songs. You get to help us with the smoke whenever we score, hopefully more often in this game. But yeah, or it's going to be a big game because Sporting Jacksonville are second in the Super League. Now, to get back to the championship, they will be joining the side with the men's team. So I believe that they already have the backroom staff lined up. Yeah, they already do have a coach named. So Liam Fox, a Scotsman from Hearts and Kilmarnock, something like that. I'm forgetting exactly which clubs he coached at, but point is they have already a pretty good base going for them. I'm assuming that they're working on building out a roster just like the Rowdies are doing. So we'll see what connections they have. There is a Scottish player on their women's team. Maybe there will be some Scottish players on their men's team now that they have a coach there from Scotland. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But Sporting Jacksonville are a pretty good organization. They're working towards ultimately having their own stadium. But right now, I believe they're playing at the University of North Florida's sports field for soccer and for football. So pretty good there. And in addition to playing them in the league, as written here, we will probably almost certainly be playing against them in the Jaeger Cup coming up. So that'll be interesting too. It's possible, depending on expansion and depending on when teams join, it's possible that in the future there will be a Jaeger Cup division that is only Florida. We're not sure exactly how that'll work out. It might still be in Greenville or possibly South Georgia, Charleston. We're not sure, but I do think that coming up in the near future, we're going to see an all Florida Jaeger Cup division.
The Florida division. I love it. We know of at least one more team out in the East Coast. I think the Treasure Coast Project for League One. I don't know what year they're set to join. That was recently announced. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case in the near future. You mentioned they're playing at Hodges Stadium on the campus of UNF. It's an interestingly very large stadium, much larger than what I thought it was. It can fit up to 12,000 people. Standard capacity is around 9,000. And it's basically just one big main stand. Really interesting. I wanted to throw in here, not explicitly related to the men's side, but the Super League women's side sold over 6,000 season tickets in the off season. Fascinating. First of all, great support. That's fun. I'm curious to see how that translates to the men's side this upcoming year in 2026. What the crowds are like. Naturally, I think there's some tension with the existing Jacksonville soccer fans that were around for Jacksonville Armada. Maybe that's not a big number at all, or maybe it is. I don't know. It's a fascinating soccer landscape. I wasn't sure how Sporting Jacks would look in their first season on the women's side, but on the field, they look great. And in the stands, they look even better. So it's really, really fascinating. I'm excited to see what the men's squad can put together in terms of, obviously their on-field product, but I think more importantly for the long-term sustainability of this club, what they can put together in the stands as well. Really, really fascinating. James, Sporting Jacks, anything else to add on them?
Not at the moment. We will see when they announce their first couple of players. And I will say actually one other thing now that I think of it. But if they have any type of ideas like they are pursuing on the women's side, then they will probably tend to run young and bring players right out of college. In fact, the best player probably in the whole league plays for Sporting Jacksonville in the Super League. And she was a one and done player at FSU before going to Sporting Jacks. I hope next year or this January she's on her way to Europe, but we'll see how that goes. That'll also benefit the Sun if she gets the hell out of the league.
Yeah. The other club next on the list we had here put together for USL expansion 2026 is Brooklyn FC. Of course, there's already a USL Super League team. There was some interesting situation with the Super League stadium location last year. I think they started playing at Columbia University's soccer field before going back to where they were originally set to play, which was I don't know how to Maimonides. I don't know how to say that. It's where the Cosmos used to play in Coney Island, the home of the minor league Mets team in Coney Island. The Cosmos used to play there in the NASL days. Now it's home to Brooklyn FC's Super League team, and soon to be the men's team as well in 2026. Interesting. I'm curious to see how this plays out as well. I don't know. Like, New York is such a massive city, right? And everything's far apart enough from each other, and on the grid in terms of public transport and everything, where like it seems like it could be a sustainable project. It just doesn't seem like the women's side has garnered all that much excitement or attention in Brooklyn.
Not yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see if the men's side will be able to spark something for Brooklyn, for Coney Island, more locally. But it will be interesting, James. They're still set on starting next season. Not one of the ones that we'll talk about that got delayed, which honestly is a little surprising. So I'm curious. I think that's the best word for me around Brooklyn FC right now. I don't know what this will look like in 2026, but I'm curious. And I almost certainly will make my way over there for the Rowdies to play, what I think they'll probably play an away game over there. I think it'd be interesting seeing the Rowdies smack in the middle of the city in New York and Coney Island. So interesting, James. Do you have any thoughts on Brooklyn FC? I think it's a really question mark of a club for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what their long-term plans are. I'm assuming that they will eventually have to find a place that is a little bit more amenable specifically to soccer, because where they play right now is not the best setup. And they have not truly caught on with the fan base that they're seeking at the moment, just like you noted. I don't know if that means that they might do better on the men's side. That is unfortunate, but it does sometimes happen. So maybe I would really just prefer that if people have a local team, that they bring in fans for both the men's and women's side. But actually, here's another comment from you and Matuasa, if I'm getting that correctly. Brooklyn FC looks like a club that will fold after next season. Now, I don't know if that's we don't have any information on that. I would be surprised if they folded after 2 seasons, because they do seem to have quite a bit of investment, including Tim Weah, by the way. But who's to say? We don't have that information. Who knows how much money they're losing right now? They do have some pretty nice kits, at least. Yeah, and we'll see how things go for the men's team in the championship.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not out on them yet. Obviously, like, the men's side hasn't even taken the field. I'm just curious because we've seen several examples of USL expansion that just don't really work out at all in the past. We've talked about the tendency of USL to kind of just try and throw things together and see what sticks, right?
Right. And then when it doesn't stick, like we're going to get to next, you just move on.
Yeah, and then it just kind of disappears into irrelevancy. And this was much more of a problem in the earlier 2010s when clubs were popping up for a season and disappearing.
Yeah,
there's a laundry list of USL teams and NASL teams, of course, at this level that were just here for a year and dipped. So Brooklyn has survived 1 year of women's soccer in the Super League. That is better than a lot of USL teams did earlier on in the history of this league. So I'm curious. Not out on them yet. Again, it's a big market. Obviously, it's friggin' New York. Just Brooklyn by itself is bigger than tons and tons of U.S. cities. So I think they have great potential around there. You're competing with a lot to do in the city of New York, right? There's a club we'll talk about later that I think is really, really fascinating as a market because there's not a lot going on around there, or at least as much as New York, that is doing really, really well in their off-season season ticket deposits. But we'll talk about that later on. Anyway, Brooklyn FC, question mark for me. Very curious what it's going to look like. I hope it comes together because, I think more teams in New York should be sustainable than really the two that they have, and really only one in New York. But I digress. Okay, here's one that we know is not playing soccer next year.
Yeah.
And if I was a betting man, I would gamble probably doesn't ever again. But that's just my guess. North Carolina FC, we talked about this briefly before, is withdrawing from the USL Championship with the stated intention of returning to USL Division 1 in 2028. In theory, pulling out to give themselves time to restructure, build up, put together a stadium plan for Division 1 status to apply to return to USL when there's a Division 1 league up and running in 2028, supposedly. Supposedly is a big key word here. I'm not really sure that this will be a successful venture for them. I don't. It seems like there's a lot that needs to go right for this to actually happen. When you play soccer at this level, when you're out for a season, 2 seasons at most, like you're gonna start to lose the fan base's interest, right?
Yeah.
The casual fan isn't waiting around to see what happens with North Carolina FC. Like, you have to be in the community, you have to be present, you have to be playing games. I don't really see how this is going to be all that successful unless there's a lot of money behind it and they could essentially come back as what would be a new team almost. There's been plenty of teams that have, taken a break, to put it, in blunt terms, that have just never come back. The one that I think of most recently is OKC Energy, right? That said they were going to take, 1 year off essentially to restructure, figure things out, get the stadium thing going. They never came back. We took their goalie on loan, and I'm forgetting his name. It wasn't all that long ago, so I feel embarrassed. I'm forgetting the goalie's name from that year. But he didn't have a club to go back to when the season was over, right? Like, it didn't exist anymore. So I'm curious to see what happens with North Carolina FC. But again, if I was a betting man, I'm putting money on North Carolina FC not coming back at all. Yeah. We'll see what happens. And it's weird. It's really, really strange. And if their actual intention is to stick around and play soccer in Division 1 in 2028, it's a baffling decision to me as to why you would step away from any action at all until then, if that makes any sense. Confusing.
Yeah. I don't necessarily believe that they're coming back. I think that that's just the best cover that they could come up with for, we're going to withdraw the team and we hope to see you in 2028. And in the meantime, obviously, expect that fans will forget about it. That's honestly what I'm guessing.
We hope to see you in 2028 is just an insane line. Like, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about what's going to happen in 2028 right now. Like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me. I truly think if their intention was to stick around, if their intention was to be around for Division 1 status when that rolls around one day, hopefully in the next few years, that the best way forward for that would be playing soccer, playing games, continuing to build your fan base that frankly is struggled. It's waned a bit in the last few years. North Carolina FC, they don't come particularly close to filling their stadium. And I don't think stepping away from action for 3 years is going to really help that case. So I don't know. I'm curious. I hope they prove me wrong. I just don't see how that's going to work. But that's your North Carolina FC expansion, quote unquote, update. I don't know.
Yeah. Along those lines, really quickly to USL League One, Texoma FC is withdrawing to drop into USL League Two. Their goal, they say, is to build up a bit more like Vermont Green, which is a USL League Two team. In all honesty, I don't know what the money constraints are, so I can't speak to that. But Vermont Green look like a team that do deserve to ultimately work their way up. Presumably, they need more investment, and I'm just guessing. They play at the University of Vermont soccer field, where the University of Vermont actually just won the NCAA championship on the men's side last year. So there's like a pretty big following for soccer in Vermont right now, and it seems to be growing. I don't know what the situation is like in Texoma. The Texoma area, they have that one was a head scratcher for me from the beginning. But if they can follow the model, I think that they pointed to Vermont FC not just to be hopeful, because Vermont FC or Vermont Green are obviously doing very well, just like I said. But I think that maybe there hopefully is going to be some collaboration is the word I'm
Yeah.
actually looking for, not corroboration. They're not in the space of committing any crimes as far as I'm aware. So hopefully Texoma will actually get some collaboration, get some best practices, bring in more investment, what have you, and we'll see them back in the future in the professional space. But in the meantime, they have decided that the USL League 2 is their best path forward, and they are focusing on keeping the academy space in place, as far as I'm aware. So that bit is positive.
Yeah.
The next one is interesting because just today it was announced that this team will be delayed until 2027. So thank you, Carlos, for adding this note, because I did not have it. I had written this, I don't know, a week ago or something. Actually, I'd written this several weeks ago, and we kept pushing it back due to more stuff coming out. But the point is, Fort Lauderdale United were supposed to join the USL League One in 2026. They are a Super League team that are expanding into the men's side as well, just like Sporting Jacks. We assumed that they would be a Jaeger Cup opponent and help fill out that Florida division. But if it's 2027, then that's why there might be a delay in getting a full Florida division. More on potential Jaeger Cup rivals in the future. However, Fort Lauderdale on the men's side will be waiting until 2027. This is how they say that they are going to make themselves a little stronger, get their this isn't the wording they used, obviously, but get their ducks lined up in a row and be properly prepared to enter the professional space in two different spaces. So, Carlos, any thoughts on Fort Lauderdale?
I've said this before. I don't really trust South Florida as like a great sports market generally.
Yes.
We've seen particularly with soccer how hot and cold it can be, mostly cold. Inter Miami is not going to have the numbers that they have once Messi is gone, right? Like that's a simple way to put it. Even then, they're not really filling up their modular smaller stadium. Miami FC is around for a while. It's moving for a reason, right? It's going further south to try and build something in a smaller community outside of Miami for a reason. Obviously, Fort Lauderdale is not in Miami, but the women's team hasn't really built all that much excitement either in terms of attendance over there. Like it's not going great, right? Some clubs start off and they're like, wow, this is awesome. Like momentum's there off the bat. Fort Lauderdale is having to build a bit of that slowly, right? So I don't really blame them for taking another season to try and figure it out. I think that's honestly a good idea for them in particular, because there's not the excitement around them maybe that you would need to build that, to have that momentum, start strong, get the fan base going, to start things off. But again, I just don't really trust South Florida as a great soccer market, which is crazy because there's so many different cultures that love soccer down there.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I think there's another question mark for me, but I'm not out on them. Obviously, I've said this about Brooklyn, right? I think there's potential. It's a big market, but this one kind of makes sense for me. Build a little more excitement. I don't know how you do that, but that's why they pay people marketing big bucks to figure it out. So we'll see. Sucks we don't have another close, immediate Jägermeister opponent, but we'll see. James, this one's a bit more fun. This team is still playing next season. It's very local. Sarasota Paradise making the jump up from USL League 2 to USL League 1. They'll be playing their games at the Premier Sports campus at Lakewood Ranch. If you're in tune with local youth soccer, you've seen probably your kids play elite soccer there, or I don't know, your neighbor's kids go play games at the Lakewood complex. It's a really, really pretty complex out there. Tons of soccer fields, great facilities. And they put a little stadium there, smack in the middle, 3,500 people. I think it's great for what they're going for right now. They've filled it up before this season. They filled it up this season, right, for multiple games. I think it's a really interesting club. Certainly a close Jägermeister Cup rival. I hope we get to play them away. It'd be kind of ridiculous to host Sarasota. Like I want to go check out, a Rowdies game away. That's some 40 minutes away from the stadium. That's awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, plenty of Rowdies fans that are based out of Sarasota. It'd be a fun time for them, I'm sure, as well. This will be a really interesting, created a ton of or success or anything. Am I back? I think I froze for a second. It's not a club that I would expect it to create a ton of excitement off the bat or anything, but James, they're slowly putting together a bit of momentum down there, and they've filled out their stadium. You were at a game before this past season, I believe, right? It was an Open Cup game against Naples, right?
Yep.
It was almost full, right? Good atmosphere, good times. Did you get a sense of what's happening with the club down there this past season?
Yeah, I can give you a couple of things related to that. I did go to an Open Cup game versus FC Naples where the then professional team, FC Naples, moved on, although it got pretty feisty. There were some players on the team for Sarasota who were talking some smack, and then one of them made a mistake, so the FC Naples player got to get right back in his face, and that's why you don't talk smack until the game is over, in my opinion. But regardless, yeah, it was a pretty good atmosphere that day. I don't think that they obviously get that many people during regular games, but with the move up to a professional level, that could change. At least people around there, I'm assuming, would have a little bit more motivation to go. It will be considered professional, and that area, as much as I kind of dislike Lakewood Ranch personally, it is a huge area for young families. And what do young families do? They put their kids in soccer. We know that nearly every child in America grows up playing soccer and another sport, right? And then some of them stick with soccer, or a huge bunch of them move into just the other sport, whatever that is. But a lot of people grow up in America playing soccer for 1 or 2 years at the least, and then maybe they move on to something else. So there are going to be a lot of kids who play soccer there. And if parents are like, I want to go do something that's family friendly and it's related to something that my kids will enjoy, presumably, hopefully they have the attention spans for it when they're younger. I know that I didn't. Then Sarasota Paradise is a good option. I would really assume that in the future they want to get closer to Sarasota proper, but I don't think that Lakewood Ranch is a bad place to start. Yeah. And if they can build up everything really cool there, then hopefully they can move it a little bit closer to the actual downtown in the future. But one quick plug for Sarasota Paradise, as much as I do not like Lakewood Ranch, just like I said, and as much as I am a Tampa Bay fan first and foremost, so all of these are potential derby teams, and therefore I hate them immediately. Sarasota Paradise have some pretty nice gear. They have some pretty nice gear. Yeah, I would highly suggest checking out their website. There might even be a sale going on at the moment with Black Friday, Cyber Monday to whatever Tuesday. Tuesday. I don't know if that would be a sale, but either way, check out their stuff. Really nice merch. I think that I got a scarf of theirs, but nice stuff.
Yeah, it gives Sarasota Paradise. It's giving the impression that it'll feel like I don't know, almost like a minor leagues baseball experience, like family friendly, community driven, great for the locals. I'm curious to see if they put together, if I don't know, are there Sarasota Paradise ultras out there? You know what I mean? Is there a diehard, I live and breathe friggin' Sarasota, and there's a supporters group or something. I don't know. I'm curious. Initially, that's what I would think this kind of vibe is for next season, right? Community, a lot of kids running around, right? It'll be really interesting to see how it develops, because I don't know how many people are really, really into lower league soccer in Sarasota that aren't Rowdies fans. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe there's some that are just really, really excited for their local team and become exclusively Paradise fans. Who knows? It'll be interesting. Excited for them. Excited for Sarasota. That's fun. Good soccer. Close by. Lakewood Ranch, not all that far from Sarasota proper. Exciting stuff. James, let's run through these last few we have here mentioned. More League One teams. One of them is delayed, but these others are not expected to be joining in 2026. AC Boise is a really interesting one for me. They're set to join in 2026. They're currently building out their soccer specific stadium. It's actually building out a stadium out of a racetrack. over there in Boise.
Which is a great reuse of an old facility for that purpose. Love that.
Yeah, it's perfect. It works. The racetrack has one main grandstand. They're going to build some seats around it and add a smaller stand on the other side. Renovate it. It's perfect. There's a field in there in the middle. It's been there for a long time, that racetrack, and means lots to the community apparently, from what I've read. So it's cool. They're renovating a community point for soccer for AC Boise. I wanted to mention this because they're really, really fascinating as a club already. They've sold out of their initial their entire 6,500 season tickets. Their deposits were eaten up by their fans and by their local Boise residents. They have a wait list that extends up to 7,500 people. Like they've eaten up these tickets, which is really cool. Expect many sellouts for this club in their smaller stadium. I was telling James before we started going live that if they kind of rolled with a Annapolis Blues type of approach and they started playing their games at their local college football stadium, of course, Boise State University's college football stadium, I think you would have seen crowds of 13,000 people in their initial season. It seems like they have really, really great momentum. It's a small city, right in the middle of Idaho. People are passionate about their Boise State Broncos in Boise, right? They don't have a professional sports team they can run to and be like, we're also passionate about this team. But I would imagine, I said this before, and now it's confirmed because they have 6,500 season ticket members and the season hasn't even started. I was pretty sure that you put a team there, a professional team there, and people are going to rally around it like crazy. It's really cool. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a great success for the USL and for that market in general. AC Boise. Yeah, exciting stuff. I'm excited. I'd like to see a game out there at some point. It sounds fun already.
It would be a hell of a drive, but I actually would like to do that at some point in the future too.
Yeah, that's really what League One should be doing, right? Is finding these markets, these markets that are underserved, right? That still have a desire for these professional sports. Boise is, I think, a perfect example of what we should be looking for at that level. Corpus Christi is another one. They're also building a soccer-specific stadium. Very similar. It'll look almost identical to your Loudoun United situation or Phoenix Rising's modular stadium as well. Simple, 5,000 people, 4 sides. It'll fit together like a glove. They're modular stadiums. They're easy to build. It'll come along quickly. Corpus Christi. I don't know anything about them, truly, but they're still set to come along in 2026 in League One. So good news that this isn't one of the teams that's folding off the bat. I know there's a team that has played several seasons in League Two. I think they started playing in the Premier Development League when it was still called that in 2018. They've garnered some crowds actually at that level that were impressive enough to make them think that the market's viable for a professional team. So I think there's potential here as well, James.
Yeah. See how everything works out. But I think that the more that we can build out for League One, because there are going to be a lot of teams in areas that have just the real quick example, obviously, is Spokane in the USL Super League and in USL League One. I think that they're actually, it's worse than the USL Super League. In the USL League One, they didn't have anybody near them. Now they will have AC Boise that we were just talking about. Yeah. But the point is, if you can put more teams in more areas and just fill in these little spots, then that makes it a little bit easier. Like if every one of your away days is hours and hours on a plane, that sucks.
Lame. Yeah. No, I'm excited. These smaller cities deserve soccer, and I think that's kind of what makes the game so interesting in countries in Europe and in South America, like clubs getting the support of their local communities in these smaller cities that are further from the capital, further from the big cities. Like that's fascinating. And like I said, I think that's kind of what USL League One should be looking for to find these markets. Corpus Christi, fascinating. Fort Wayne is another one as well. Fort Wayne, Indiana. They're building out a soccer specific stadium in League One. Again, I mentioned this because I think it's important. It'll hold over 9,000 people, and it's being modeled after Loudoun United Stadium. It'll look very similar to that when it's done. right off of the highway in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's a city that whose population is under 500,000 people. Not a massive city, but again, I think that's the market you should be looking for if they're passionate about the game. I don't know a ton about the build up to this, what the crowds have looked like for soccer in Fort Wayne prior to this. But if you're building out a 9,000 person stadium off the rip, I assume there has to be some indication of sustainability here. It looks like it'll be a really cool stadium.
Yeah. Should be noted that the Fort Wayne team, the club, is backed by DeMarcus Beasley. He and his brother, obviously, they are originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana. So he is trying to do something to help give back to the local community, blah, 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 build up soccer in your local area. Right. Yeah. So honestly, that part of it is really cool for me. It's one thing to invest in a club like Tim Weah is from Brooklyn. He is trying to help Brooklyn a little bit with his own investment there. We don't know how that'll last in the long term, and we don't know how this will last in the long term. But DeMarcus Beasley was personally involved in the founding of this club.
Yeah.
So he's really putting his money where his mouth is, if you ask me, on this one. And I love that personally. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it'll be a nice stadium. It would be one of the nicer stadiums in the championship. Yeah, if it comes to fruition. I think it should. It's a really nice stadium. Like I said, modeled after Louisville Stadium, who we all know is probably the cream of the crop in terms of USL Championship soccer specific stadiums. It's a really, really nice spot. Last few to talk about here, New York Cosmos. We've mentioned them before, obviously coming back to League One. They're confirmed to be playing next season at Hinchliffe Stadium in Paterson, New Jersey. Holds around 7,000 folks. In that old stadium over there. It's a historic stadium. It's been around for a very long time, hosted plenty of baseball in its day in the 1900s. I think it's a great spot for the Cosmos for now. Jury's out on how successful a team will be in Paterson, New Jersey. It's not necessarily close to the city of New York anymore, or in the city of New York, as it was when it was in Coney Island, where Brooklyn FC now resides. But it's interesting. Sebastian Lozati, obviously playing over there next year, as we've heard. He'll be playing for the Cosmos once again. So I'll be keeping an eye on them. I think it's a fascinating club, obviously, because of its history, but more importantly, because of what it's going to look like next year. I'm really curious. Yeah, like I said, great stadium, great spot to be in for its first season. Yeah,
there is plenty of, there's plenty of soccer fervor in New Jersey, and I think that'll probably build in the lead up to the World Cup, where the final will ultimately be played. But how much is that going to translate? We're not too sure. Hopefully I don't know. Hopefully the historical branding is going to help out here.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. So keep an eye on them. Obviously, we have a fun history with the Cosmos. Some people have already been joined the hate train again for the Cosmos. I think it's been long enough to where I'm not really immediately passionate about disliking the Cosmos. So I'm curious to see how it looks next season more than anything. Sporting Cascades is the last team on our list, and I mentioned this because I saw the report today. They're also set to be delayed. Not sure to when, but this is from Alex Ashton's reporting, USL League One guy. Great insight on League One. But he's confirmed that Sporting Cascades will be delayed. I don't know if it's 2027. Don't know if it's 2028. But they are putting together a nice little stadium situation in Civic Park, is what it's called, in Eugene, Oregon. Again, a smaller city, college town that can really rally around its sports. Super passionate about the Oregon Ducks over there. I think you'd have a similar-ish situation to the Boise market. But being delayed, unfortunate. I think their stadium situation is actually pretty interesting if you read up on it. It's Civic Park is what it's called. The field used to be kind of a center point for youth sports, community sports, in that neighborhood. Burned down several years ago, and they've rebuilt it with the idea of converting it into a small venue for Sporting Cascades in League One. Unfortunately, club's being delayed in its launch. Hopefully it's 2027 and not any later, because I think it could be a really interesting market there as well for soccer and for League One. So keep an eye on them, Sporting Cascades.
All right. I think that we have done all of our USL expansion, Carlos.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I wanted to highlight in extra time that the MLS final is coming up this week. If you're listening to this, that's probably not a big deal to you. But one thing that is kind of cool, it will be Saturday between Lionel Messi and Thomas Muller and probably some other players as well. But those are obviously your headliners.
Lame. Messi, like they're going to give it to Inter Miami. They have to give it to Messi, if we're being honest. So
they are hosting it, so they will obviously have the home field advantage.
Yeah, we'll see. Cool, fun. Watch it if you want. I guess I don't know. Whatever. MLS is so silly to me with the whole Messi like fandango. I'm sorry. I can't. I just don't get all that interested in it. Last couple things I'll throw in here extra time really rapidly. Just fascinating, by the way. 2 new Ecuadorian wonder kids just keep popping up on my feed all the time. This kid, Edwin and Olguer Quintero, just signed to Arsenal. 16 years old. Crazy. Independiente del Valle, producing ridiculous talent. So fun. Great for the Ecuadorian national team. Great for soccer. Super excited for them. Also, Georgetown soccer in the quarterfinals of the national men's soccer playoffs. By the way, fascinating games. They're playing North Carolina State on Friday at 6:30 p.m. I'm gutted to be missing it in person, but I'll be tuned in very closely on my phone. James, it'll be really fun time. So keep an eye with college soccer playoffs this weekend. The ladies are in the Final Four, the College Cup stage of it, hosted out in Kansas City at the women's soccer specific stadium over there, which is really, really cool. And the guys' College Cup Final Four will be in Cary, North Carolina, formerly the home of the North Carolina FC and the Railhawks. So Interesting stuff. James, that's where I'll wrap it up. We're at an hour and 20 minutes, but there's a lot to talk about. Just the expansion news would have taken us a whole episode, but then they threw 3 signings at us to talk about. So here we are.
Yep. That obviously did slow us down a little bit, but no problem there. Thank you for everyone. Thank you all of the listeners for tuning in. We always appreciate when you do. Please follow RBLR Sports on your Instagrams, Twitters, TikToks, Facebooks, Threads, Blue Skies, whatever other one I'm forgetting. And we are at RBLR Sports. I'm mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K. You can use the hashtag AskRBLR, or you can reach Carlos
at CarlosTPA10 on Twitter. Use hashtag AskRBLR for any of your questions, comments, concerns. Throw them in there. Thank you to everyone who tuned in on YouTube, especially who's throwing in the live questions, comments. I love seeing them come in and referencing them on air. Really, really fun. So yeah, love engaging with everybody on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever it is. But you can follow me at CarlosTPA10.
Like and subscribe to our podcast. You can get the full experience on YouTube, or if you just want to hear us, no problem. We are also on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. For another week closer to the season and with some players in the books, come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.